This is the final video of the series. On the previous video, we have successfully transferred domain registration from GoDaddy to Amazon Route 53. We created labs.stickshow.com to access our web application, but it's only listening and accessible through TCP port 80. We know traffic or HTTP requests sent to our web application is plain text, not encrypted and not secured. So in this video, we will create our TLS certificate and associate it to our AWS Elastic Load Balancer or ELB so that it will process web requests securely. Let's begin. I'm here now in our EC2 console home. This is my first tab. And the second tab will be our Route 53. And I will open a third tab. So the third tab, I'll copy paste and I will go to AWS Certificate Manager or ACM. So let's search and there you go. Certificate Manager is our ACM. And later we're gonna click Request Certificate to create a public certificate that will be used later to our web application. Now the fourth tab will be our web application but using a subdomain labs. So the full URL will be labs.stickshow.com. And there you go. We can still access our application. Okay, the fourth tab. All right, before we open the fifth tab, you will see in our fourth tab that this URL is not secure. If I click this icon, this lock icon, it's stated here, connection not secure. And why is that? Because this application is only listening to port 80, HTTP only, unencrypted. So what I will do is I will copy this and paste it to our fifth tab. And look, it's only listening to HTTP. It's correct. Unsecure. I will add HTTPS. Hit enter. And as you can see, the application, because it's listening to 443 or TCP 443, is unresponsive. And later, this application will be timing out. So what we'll do next is we're going to create or request a certificate. So we will go to our third tab, our ACM. And it's either I click request a certificate here on the right hand of the screen or click request certificate here on my left pane. I'll just click this one and you have two options, but we will just select the default request a public certificate. I'm gonna click next and we'll now be adding our fully qualified domain name or our FUDN. I can use stickshow.com. But I will add asterisk. And why? I can also use labs.stickshow.com, but I will just use asterisk. This is because maybe later we'll add more subdomain like apps.stickshow.com or test.stickshow.com. Okay, so to be safe, we'll just use asterisk. And by the way, if we add more hosted zone, more subdomain for stickshow.com, they will all be using the same public certificate. So again, this will be safe. Under validation method, I will just use the default, the DNS validation, and under key algorithm, I will use the default as well, RSA 2048. I'm gonna click request. And there you go. So it says here, successfully requested certificate with this ID, but we still don't see the certificate. Okay, that's okay. I will just click refresh now. And also make sure that we are all using the same region, which is Singapore. All are Singapore, except for the Route 53 because it's only available under global. Okay. All right. So we already have our certificate, but the status is still pending validation. And why? Because that's a process. We still need to validate it before we use this certificate. And how do we validate? It's quite easy. All we need to do is click this link, the certificate ID, and this will take us to the certificate status page where we can validate. Okay, so let's just check. The domain is asterisk.stickshow.com and status is pending validation. What else? I think that's it. All I need to do is click create records in Route 53. Now, what will happen is as I click this, it will create another record in Route 53. We already have existing record. the name server, the SOA, and the alias. This is what we created from the previous video. Now let's click create records in Route 53, and this will also validate this certificate. Okay, the entry that it will be added in our Route 53 will be CNAME. Okay, I'm gonna click create records now. There, it says successfully created DNS, and later as we refresh, the status will change to validated. Let's go first to our Route 53. So this is our Route 53. If I click hosted zone, we'll see the styxshow.com that we created. I'm gonna click this link, and you see we have now 4 entries. Again, before or in our previous video, we created the NS record. Okay, we also created the SOA and the alias. Now we have the 4th one, the CNAME, which is our public certificate. Now if I go back to our ACM, I will click list certificate. You will see that the certificate ID is already validated. The status is issued. Now, what we did is just we created the certificate and then it has been validated. Let's test our HTTPS, our web application via HTTPS. And don't expect this to work because we don't complete the process yet. Okay, if I hit refresh, it's still inaccessible, still unresponsive, and eventually the connection will time out again. We're just starting. We're still on the certificate part. Well, actually, we just completed the certificate part. The reason why this is still timing out is because, take note, we are now sending HTTP requests to a secured protocol, which is HTTPS listening on port 443. Port 443 is not yet allowed. Okay, and how do we allow it? Remember from our previous videos when we created our application load balancer, our ELB, we added a listener. Okay, so let's go to our load balancer, our Styx ELB. We added a listener. So let me click this tab, listeners and rules. This is the listener that we added from the previous video, and it's only listening to port 80. Okay, because it's HTTP application. What we will do next is we will add another listener, but this time it will be listening to not HTTP but HTTPS. There you go. As you can see, port 443, the default port of HTTPS. And I will select the same target group that we were using in our listener port 80. And okay, as I scroll down, there is a certificate where we will associate the public certificate that we created. We have 3 options: from ACM, from IAM, and import a certificate. Well, we already know the answer what to choose. We created our public certificate via ACM, so this would be the correct option. All I need to do is click the select box, and you should see this certificate, asterisk.styxshow.com, which what we just created. I'm gonna select this and click add. There, we have now a new listener, HTTPS port 443. Now let's test again. I'm gonna hit refresh, our 5th tab, and it's still unresponsive, and eventually this will time out again. Now there's already a hint from the load balancer page. You see that we already have our 2nd listener, HTTPS TCP 443, but you see it says here not reachable. And why is it not reachable? Remember, we created the security group and applied it to ELB. What is the security group name again? If I click our security group, there is a dedicated security group for our load balancer. The name is ELB-SG. Let's click this. Let's edit the inbound rules. I'm gonna click the tick box and click edit inbound rules. And this is the reason why it's still timing out. Because although we added the listener listening on port 443, we haven't added the permission. HTTPS or TCP 443 is not yet allowed. I'm gonna click add rule and I will select HTTPS. There you go, HTTPS. It's listening on TCP 443. And from the source address, I will just select the quad 0, meaning all. I'm gonna click Save Rules now. There. And if I go back to our load balancer and click Listener Rules, you don't see the not reachable anymore because we already allowed the TCP 443 traffic in our security group. And let's refresh. There you go. Okay, we can now access our web application via HTTPS. If I click this lock icon, you will see that connection is now secured. Okay, if I click this, it says verified by Amazon. Well, we're not done yet. As you can see, both HTTP and HTTPS are working. But we don't want our traffic to be sent to HTTP. Again, it's unsecure. So what we want to do is, every time we visit the HTTP TCP port 80 to labs.styxshow.com, it should be redirected to HTTPS. This is what we call the HTTP to HTTPS redirection. And how do we enable that? It's quite easy, you know? All we need to do is go back to our load balancer and edit this listener, HTTP port 80. If I click this link, I'll click this tick box and I will select edit role. Okay, so this is our current status. HTTP, yes, listening to port 80. The routing action is forward to target groups. That is why it's still showing this page and load balancing to our two EC2s. What we want to do is, we don't want the traffic to forward to Styx TG. We want every time someone sends a request via HTTP, it will be redirected to a URL. And what URL? Well, this is what we call the HTTPS redirection. As you can see, the protocol is selected here. It's already HTTPS, and by default, it's 443. Now, there is a redirect to URL options here. One is URI parts. We also have the second option, full URL, where it also adds the path, the query, and of course the HTML files. Either of these two will work, but we'll keep it simple. We'll just use URI parts. And the status code, we'll just use the default 301 permanently moved. I'm gonna click Save Changes. Now, before I click Save Changes, again, it's still labs.styxshow.com, listening on port 80, and the icon is still not secured. As I click Save Changes, okay, it says successfully modify the listener. If I click Load Balancer and listener rules, okay, you will see the status code. It says HTTP_301. So this is what has been changed. And you see also the default action is redirect to HTTPS. Let's see if this will work. I will go to our 4 tab and it's currently unsecure, right? Labs.styxshow.com. This is our URL. If I hit refresh, ready? The moment of truth. I'm gonna hit refresh now. And as you can see, our HTTP to HTTPS redirection is working properly because this icon has been changed to locked and connection secure status. If I click this link, it says verified by Amazon. Yes, that's how easy it is to enable HTTPS port 443 and enable HTTP redirect in AWS Elastic Load Balancer. This is the conclusion of AWS ELB and WAF video tutorials. What I will do is, I will create a written version of these tutorials, like a lab guide. Alright, so thanks for watching. Please suggest which AWS security technologies you would like me to create video tutorials on.